Welcome today lectures on structure and environment. It's very peculiar title. We talking about what is environment, why it is important for the engineers for designing the structure. And I myself am a civil engineer. I do my master's on water and environment and do my PhD on sustainable development using land and water for the development of a city. So my talk today will be looking at the aspects, what you're going to learn today, the aspects what we're going to walk through, what is environment, why environment is important. For the purpose of the learning is fourfold. Four things we're going to look at it in our presentations. First, we want to know why we want to learn, why it is important, the safeguarding the environment. What are the standards and tools available and mentioned in our BNBC code, DOE, and other legal frameworks regarding the environment protections? Third, we're going to talk about, we like to introduce you the knowledge on the tools, available tools to analyze current situation and what will be with the interventions, proposed interventions, the change environment. What are the measures we can take to reduce the impacts on the environment? I also like to talk on some of the examples that we like to do or you like to do during in practice, that how we can reduce the impact, what are the available studies you can apply. As an example, we can demonstrate at the end. So in our talk, for my talk, Atik will also join with me. I must thank Dr. Ghosh and Dr. Raquib to give me the opportunity to talk on this subject. And today, I must thank to my colleagues, Atik Rahman, Mohan, Siddiq, to help me to compile different source of information so that I can prepare my lectures for you. In my lectures to attain my objective, which I mentioned earlier, the study objectives or lecture objectives in three parts. I'm going to talk on three different parts. The first is concept and importance for sustainable built environment. What is sustainable and built environment? I'm going to explain what is mean by that. And what are the rules? What are the BNBC directions in related to that? In part two, I'm going to talk about key environment considerations for build up environment for building and house and constructions. What are the standards that are available? And what are the tools and methods to analyze the consequence of any interventions on the environment? And part three, we like to demonstrate, we like to show you how you apply tools and knowledge and standards for environment auditing or environmental analysis. And whole lectures, there will be the three parts. After each part, we will take a 10 minutes break in a way, and out of 10 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, you're going to type your questions for further clarifications. I try to answer in 5 minutes, the total 10 minutes. Okay, hope this will be interesting. So let's start the journey with me. So part one, which we mentioned, the concept and importance of sustainable built environment. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by built environment and a sustainable development? And why it is important for environment safeguards or impacts analysis? That we like to walk through. Start with what is BNBC saying, because the whole focus to enforcement of BNBC, in order to enforce the BNBC, we have to know what BNBC is telling and which sections, which chapters mention about the environment and sustainable development. Here is some site. It has been mentioned in BNBC, but does not show you how to implement. But it really mentions the sections and the importance of enforcing the rules and procedural standards for safe environment. One of the things they mention in the sections, which is positive environment considerations in the design. What do you mean by positive environment considerations? Positive environments means use the natural resources without degrading the state of environment. That is positive. You cannot go down. You have to go up. You have to enhance. Now there is an scarcity of recharge or flashing problems of the environment. You build your house or develop an area in a way it will enhance the condition of the environment, not to deplete. That is the direction in the BNBC, which is Article 4.1, that they mention two words: sustainable constructions practice. So sustainable construction practice and positive environment. These are the two major highlights in BNBC Article 4.1. Also further emphasize in the system that is a mainly why it is important. The BNBC highlights in terms of safeguard the ecosystem so that it does not degrade. It does not degrade. So design and constructions, where it can be applied, it indirectly mentioned that design and construction and use levels, you have to maintain this. This is very important for us. I've now come to a point. What is sustainable development? Go back. What is sustainable development? This is very simple words. This is the definition I use in my PhD. This is fulfilling future generation needs. That is fine. So you have to look for what the future demands will be. How you can address those demands in a way without degrading the environment. If you degrade now, that means that resource no longer useful or usable for the future generation. That is the fundamental definitions of sustainable development. Any development, you look long term, and that is important. Long term here, we build a building, lifetime is approximately 100 years. 3 generations we are supposed to use that infrastructure. In order to ensure the use, the functionality which was designed for, we have to be careful about the consequence or impacts on the environment. Otherwise, we will go to a room and house where too much sound surrounding, we cannot talk. too much noise and too much dust around, you cannot breathe in open sky, on open room or veranda. Pollution is so bad, the odor, and you cannot smell it, you cannot go out. So that for your comfort, for your usability, we have no other choice but to protect environment. So first word is no degradations of natural resources. So the recharge, the fluctuations of the groundwater, regulation functions, the major regulatory functions of a flood or rainfall to recharge back the groundwater level from where most of the people in Dhaka city drink for their use for the drinking purpose. It is depleting now. It's going down, and we have to look at it recharge part. Also, we have to look at it regenerations. Means the forest areas, the area have to regenerate again. The extractions of the wood or bamboo growth should be enough, so the extraction is less than the growth. So regeneration can be happening. There will be the environment in the soil so that it can regenerate and cope with the extractions. We need the bamboo, wood, other natural resources, but we cannot deplete of its productions. So yield of each unit must be high enough than the productions. This is very important for sustainable development. Equity and social justice. All we are talking about, all the Indian solution for the people, for all the people, that is for all the people. It is not a part, only the client, Mr. X. This is the community you are building. The users is not only that person X, but also impacted by the surrounding community. What are the justice in terms of using the technology, using the knowledge, and disparity between headquarters and local levels, the using the resources, we have to be careful. For example, let's say you have a new technology, even US, and when we implement here, people should know the local engineer must understand and learn and apply in his service life. That is justice to the locality, local technology. That's important. And this is part of the sustainability because redundancy, dependency is one of the key things you have to understand. Okay. Another part is a positive economic growth. What do you mean by positive economic growth? We are doing the investments. Why we are doing investments? We want to save money or earn money. Okay, so that's simple. So your investments, you are investment for a house for 100 years, but after 50 years is not usable. What are you going to do? So you have to be careful about changing environment and surrounding areas. Now here I want to say the pictures on the right is the balancing the societal demands and natural resource quality and service. We are receiving this service from the natural system, from the soil, water, and air to build and live better. So these two things need to be balanced in order to reach the sustainable goal that is important. Sustaining our infrastructure, sustaining when we are designing an infrastructure, when we are constructing an infrastructure, when we are using an infrastructure. Here we are talking about houses, buildings. Next one is a little bit complicated, but I'm let's say in the world The capitals is split into the 5 major categories. Here is like a human capital. Human capital is the biggest resource, biggest capital. Very difficult to give is the monitoring value of it. What is the value of a life? No one knows. Everybody can guess. For example, they do like 100 years or 60 years he will live, and 40 years he will earn. So this is the average earning. So this is the value of him. It's not true. I'm supporting the community. I talk with the children. There are values, the societal values, natural values, financial values. Societal value is one of the thing, an environment and natural system you have to look very carefully. The asset, present level of asset, we should not deplete. That is the thing. So for sustainable natural resource use, we cannot deplete any natural asset now, not in future. That we have to be careful about sustainable development. Many thoughts around the regarding the sustainable development. Here I want to highlight what are the challenges for sustainable development. What are the barriers? What are the things we're going to face when we implement sustainable development? In a design lifetime, when setting and design lifetime, this is important. You see the users now saying, okay, I'm going to live for 100 years for this building. Okay. But when you're talking about 100 years, then you don't look at it, that moment of time, what are the uncertainty in the natural system? Means you put your plinth level or your formation levels in such a way in 100 years, it won't flood it. Let's say with the climate change or unplanned development or some of the land use, land cover information changes, change the whole hydrology of it. So 100-year flood will come 50-year return here. So instead of one times you said it will come twice more than expected. Another one, when previously we are developing countries. Now we are in the middle range countries. So $2,000 per capita income now. When our capital income was in 1970 about $200. Now it is 10 times more. So our societal expectations on the protections on comfort is changed. It increasing. Previously 100 years flood levels is okay. In 100 years, one time or two time I will go underwater. It's okay for me. Now no. In 1,000 years, my house should not go underwater. So demands, societal demands also changes. This dynamics is very important. We have to understand the people. We have to understand the environment for the sustainable thing. So challenge, these are both are very dynamic in nature. This is important. What are the things are changing? External factors for these changes, these natural system, which produce goods and services to the society, and demand from the society based on economic development. How are we going to match this two? This is important. This uncertainty, the external factors, mainly due to the demography, like a lot of development is happening in Dhaka city, people start migrating and come to Dhaka city for better life, opportunity for better opportunity to support their life and livelihood. This is important. Then second category is climate change. Somebody doing the emissions in America or developed country, we are suffering from there now. We are getting the season where the monsoon is supposed to start, but we found that monsoon starts earlier than normally expected time, or the intensity is higher than normally expected. So unexpected, normal behaviors become unexpected, in future with the climate change. So we have these external factors. We have to understand that. Then the global economy. You have to look at the global economy when you're talking about the development within the country. Let's say, for example, the oil price. Oil price changes, the transport cost increases. Transport cost increases means your construction cost increases. So you have to look at all the dynamics on a system so that we can build, at least we can build much better system. So whatever the things we are talking about, we are in the global environment. In reality, in the political, we have boundary. Nature does not have boundary. Pollution in US and such pollutions, the green cloud we see on the sky of Dhaka city. A lot of people do have health respiration problems because of that. We have to look at it. We have to understand the importance of environment and the surroundings. One of the three things that we look at it in the circles on the right, the change in technology. What you have, there are changes. So you have to cope with the changes of technology. New machines, new computer, new methods of solutions. We have to adjust. We have to understand. We have to cope with the things. So it is in a dynamic nature. We have to cope and adopt with the change of climate change. So, and also we have to understand the social demands and natural requirements, the balancing of social demand with the natural resources. In overall, we are sitting on the pyramid, which shows in the red triangle. We're sitting on the pyramid. We are users. We are the user of everything. But to save ourselves for our future generation, we must not only the user, but also the custodian of the universe, of the natural system, who cannot come and tell you, Hassan, I not have water to drink. River won't come to you. You have to go to the river to understand what she wants. So now I come to a little bit definitional thing, but don't take it a hardcore definition. This is like a informations what it is mean by environment. Environment is the interrelationship between what? Between air, water, and land, with the human, with the plants, with the animals. That relation, all our interrelations is a part of the environment. The state, each state, all the environmental components, and there the relationship. If there is a no air flow in the universe, for example, if it is not rotate, for example, see, it is rotate. Earth is rotating, right? Now all the plates moving in the north. If it is stopped rotating, what's going to happen? Imagine relative force and other things. We don't feel there is a huge gravitational force. If one does not work, what's going to happen? For example, if we have air temperature increases, then evaporation increases. Some area will be desert, some area will be flooded with water. The circulation is happening because of world is rotating. We have to, this is all are connected. All we're talking about interrelationships. This is important. The physical part, what we're talking about is physical property of the environment We are talking about water, air, and this quality of it, and the relation with. I mentioned that human, uh, the plants, flora and fauna. That's important. That's we have to look at when we build an infrastructure. You cannot build without the environment. So now what we fundamentally we understand what you're talking about, what environment important for the engineers, which all about our talk today. So engineers, if you look at it at the right side picture, engineers has a piece of land. It has an air, water, natural resources, right? And also on the right side, it has also he or she has standards, methods, protocols, how to use and their knowledge to meet the demand of a client. These three things they normally do. Now we want not forget about ecosystem or environment protection while you are giving the service to the client. That is important. So this is the fundamental part why we need to learn, why engineers, because we are the builders. We are civil engineers are the builders of the society. We have to understand the society and also the protect the environment. This is important. End of the day, whatever we produce, the engineer produce, it must be sustainable and cost effective and environment safe is the end of the day we want. Why this is not happening? One of the things what we should consider is the limiting use. When you use, let's reduce the wastage. Don't waste much. Care about when you're using. What is the standard for livable environment? You have to understand accordingly you have to design. What is the standard? So I need south facing house. I need air to flow and I need to breathe fresh air. So that sort of things you have to look at it, surrounding areas. Now I come to some points which is very sensitive to the environment. We called it ecological critical area. So it is important to look after. Everything we have to look after. There are spatial areas. We call it ecological critical areas. There's another word also, protective areas. So protected areas, ecological sensitive areas, we have to understand what you mean by that. Ecological critical area, already the things, the environment on that particular area, it may be the waterland, it may be forest, it may be lake, are in danger, already degraded. We need to take care of it. But surrounding, when you're talking about building in a house, anything ecologically important, the ecological critical area within 500 to 1 kilometer, we have to look at it differently. We cannot disturb the bird. A bird, they are sleeping in the night. There are colonies in the bird colonies nearby. The fishermen, we dump our waste human excreta into the lakes, and finally we change the dissolved oxygen level of the lake, and fish die. We cannot do that. So we have to be careful when the ecological critical area within the half kilometer to 1 kilometer. That is very, very important. I want to talk about the ecological area at around Dhaka city. There are 4 out of 12 ecological sensitive area. If you look at it, 12, then in 12, what you're talking about here is uh, Protected area, there are 38 protected areas, and ecological critical area, there are 12. Out of 12, these 12 are already endangered, already threatened. So we need to take care of it, attentions to that. And out of which, out of 12, there are the 12 list here. You can find it here, which 5 at around Dhaka city. Within one is the Gulshan Lake, and all other ports are the perennial rivers of the Dhaka city, like a Buriganga, Shitalak, and Balu River, which are already at danger. Why it is the danger? I'm going to show you one example for it. There are many parameters when the aquatic life cannot survive. If there is no oxygen, dissolved oxygen in the water, it will die. The standards of dissolved oxygen is 4 ppm. But some of the, you can see this graph, 3 of them, I should show 5 of them, but these 3 much below 4, like a Buriganga. If you look at what happening here, the Balu, the rock, very Dhalashuri is up because still it is receiving fresh water flow from the Jamuna River. So this is important. You see why we have to take care of. Later on, you cannot enjoy the lake of the Gulshan. You know, the river, you cannot move around, go to the lake sides and river sides, where the value, flat, you sell the flat is almost 2 times more because people want to see the scenic beauty and the natural beauty, they want to take it. But the river is dead. So what is the beauty? You cannot sell that building. No one go there. What's going to happen? So you have to protect the environment for better return. Also important. Just looked at it in Bangladesh, in Dhaka city. Because of disparity in the development, the rural versus urban, there are migrations because of opportunity, development disparity. The rural people are they are not in the mainstream of the developments, and the urbans are more developed. And Dhaka city and Chittagong are the 2 urban cities are developing very fast and a lot of resources there. So people come for the opportunity and that's it. If you looked at it, the populations 2001 2.5 million. In 2021, 10 times. 10 times more than 10 years back. Imagine how fast it's growing. So people need a house. People need basic needs and shelters. Why they find it? So we need to understand how best to use the environment, use the space with full protection of environment. That we need to know. Then we're talking about green space, livable space. One of the things that we found that 25% green space we need for a healthy environment for a city. But unfortunately in Dhaka now is 5%. And this is grossly inadequate, unhealthy situation. So these changes in green space which cause temperature, we call it heat island effects on Dhaka city. And here is the result. The surrounding is not much red, but when you come to Dhaka, they're red. Means the other areas, if you feel 28 degrees Celsius, here you're going to feel 28, 29 degrees Celsius, 2 to 3 degrees more because of these paved area, less green area, less wetlands, make the temperature higher and higher. This is very crucial when you're talking about totality of the planning, total system, you have to look at it. Then this is back. I already explained this one, but in summary, there are already these four rivers and one lake already in a critical area. We have to look at it. Also, we look at it recently. We also look at it the flooding in Bangladesh, flooding in Dhaka city because of drainage system change, unplanned, unresilient plans, developments. Most of the natural system we actually either encourage or filled it up with and build and building on the top of it. Finally, we suffer because we thought we got to get it land and we'll build the house, but if we don't have the wetlands or canals, water won't rain. Rain will come. You cannot cover the whole Dhaka city with umbrella, right? So we have to face the natural system, and we have to allow natural rainfall to drain to its mother, that is river system or wetlands. If you look at the left side, the blue are the current wetlands, and the yellow was in 20 years back. Substantial reduction, 38% wetland has been reduced. Imagine what is happening here in Dhaka city. As a result, the consequence, if you looked at it very carefully, what environment degradations in environment, why these environment degradations are happening. These are the few points I put it so that you understand, you look at it. So reduction at the green area, this is one. Loss of aquatic life because of loss of wetlands means loss of aquatic life. We don't have wetland. So where this aquatic life will be survived. In educate, this is very important. Waste management, solid waste, we just dump in an open space. We dump directly to the river. So that inadequate functionality of the system. And also we are talking about, I already mentioned the channels and drainage and wetlands and dry up. So in a drainage capacity reduced substantially. No point how the enforcement, all these things happen. There is a law, no doubt of it. I will show you. Environmental law. There are punishments. The enforcement is missing. Same for BNBC. So that is important. Enforcement. How can we do the enforcement without knowing the law, how to do that? How can you blame me? I don't know. I don't know where to find the answers. What are the tools is available? What are the codes are available? So that is the fundamental thing that we are trying under the program of S9. Here is an example of the Dhaka city. Normally, we call it and rainfall become an extreme event when rainfall intensity is more than 95th or 90th percentile. If you calculate, which is approximately 153 millimeter for 24 hours rainfall. In 2nd June of 2021, we found a lot of areas, Mirpur and other areas, goes underwater. Even 80 millimeter rainfall. Imagine, it is not even extreme. It's normal, expected. Even then, we have suffered from it because there is no wetland, no drainage system. Ultimately, it suffers. Our house goes underwater. Maintenance goes up, and also the structure becomes vulnerable. You have to know that. You have to understand. And accordingly, you have to plan for it. And here is some examples of Dhaka city flooding. That evidence, these are the areas we have problem with the water. Now I will snapshot of the climate change. But why it is important? Because the uncertainty We are the challenges for future generation. What are the major challenges? One is more people will come, more growth, more urban migrations, and also we are having other challenges is the climate change. Climate change in the resource availability will change. Depletion of the groundwater will change. Availability of the surface water will change. So whole system and more heat, more temperature, more uncertainty in using the natural resources. So finally, it is on the patient, on the natural system. Finally, environment will suffer if you don't take care of it properly. Understand and take care of it. We need to. There is the definitions in IPCC, but major things to understand the climate change. Just you have an winter time, you have a summer time, for example. We have a gradual change between summer and winter. If you have it today, temperature is 38, next day is 10, you will die. Because that shock we cannot absorb. So temperature, the change, the global change is so fast, we cannot adapt. That is climate change. So variability is changing fast. Uncertainty increase. Why it's happening? Here is some example, the agriculture, the industry pollutions, carbon dioxide emissions from the different fossil fuel burning to car and many things. So I don't want to go to there. Here are different scenarios. One of the scenario that no regret scenarios, if you minimum temperature will rise 1.5 degrees Celsius in 2100. 1.5 minutes. Hassan, are you joking? 1.5 degree. Yeah, we have to consider that. You imagine your body temperature is 97. 1.5, people start calling you, you have a fever. You're no longer in a safe position. That's the way you have to think about 1.5 degrees Celsius. 1.5 degrees Celsius, what are the consequences I'm going to show you now. Here are the temperature differences will be in the future. And the rainfall, more southwestern part will be more warmer and more rainy and heavy wets will be in the northeastern and Chittagong areas. And here is one simulations. If you look at it year-wise, look at the year and it's become orange and red colors. Slowly, it's going up over 100 years. You can say, Hassan, it's slowly increasing. But it increasing does not give us enough time to change. An ecosystem change needs minimum 100 years. So this change will change the ecosystem. And ecosystem changes means it does not able to produce goods and service for us. And finally we suffer. Here is an example of Dhaka city, but Dhaka city flooding depends on three major rivers, Ganges, Brahmaputra and Meghna system. Even Ganges system area is twice the big the Brahmaputra, but the flow is double than the Ganges. So it does not mean the area is big, you can get flow because of rainfall, almost 2,000 and Ganges basin around 1,000, Meghna basin is 3,000 to 4,000. Why I'm telling this? Because there is a variation you have to understand. The Balu rivers depends on some system. The Kalashari rivers depends on the Brahmaputra system and the Ganges Lapta system. All these things are connected. So we have to understand the surrounding very well. And in future, there will be the more flow. Like I said, 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius. The monsoon water will increase 5 to 10%. That will be more flooding. And dry season flow will be less, 5% in the Jamuna River. What does it mean? If you have less flow in the dry season, we have less flow for drinking. Imagine. And also the flushing of the river. You have to flash it. Like you flash, you use your toilet. If you don't have flash, you cannot use it. So understanding from here with the climate change that more flow will come, more flooding, less dry season flow means less flow, environment flow, less environment flow for Dhaka city. That's the message I will tell. Here is another simulation of the sea level rise. You know, 1 meter of the sea level will be rise in 100 years. Ahsan, 100 years, 100 centimeters is nothing. Our tidal level change, 3 meters. What are you talking about, 100 centimeters? You can see one. Even this simulation, I show it in UK, different projects in UK, climate change summits. And you see the blues are the area will be threatened by the sea level rise if you not do anything now. If that goes, these people won't able to go for agriculture. Those people will come to Dhaka city, more migrations, more pressure on your Dhaka city. So not only look at it within the city itself, but you have to look at its surroundings. That is my point. So go to the so regarding the fixations of plinth level, we have to know the road level. I will come to that later. But here, the design levels, you will find there are design levels for different roads and embankments. What is mean by that? It has been raised the top level in such level so that 100-year water level won't reach national height. That's the way you have to. The railroads designed for 100 years planning. Imagine that 100 years will come in a 30 years period. These roads will be submerged due to the climate change. So you have to understand it. Most of our buildings are 100 years. We're building. And we have to, and our roads, nearby roads, the Dhaka City Road, you are looking at it, it is either 30 years return period or 50 years return period. Now here is another example I want to tell you about groundwater depletions. Why it is important? We are on the soil, underneath the oil, so there is air, water, and soil. That is the composition of the soil, right? Geology. And if you take it out the water, there is the vacuum, right? There will be subsidence because of groundwater depletions. You just see that it was 1.5 meter, 1.5 and 6, 1.6 meter. It is now 21 meter below we get the groundwater. So we are already lower down because we are over extracting the groundwater. We are pumping a lot. Now, I call it in Dhaka City water, we are drinking water, which dinosaurs actually are drinking millions of years before. So that's happening now. What we have to, very important. So we have to give clear coverage, the space for recharge. That is important. Otherwise, there will be no recharge. There will be more settlements, more settles. Ultimately, we have a problem in the Dhaka city. So here is an example of remote sensing data. Last 3 years, there is there is a subsidence evident from the satellite images. Satellite here, we are talking about distance from the satellite for different time series. On the top of the building, we see the buildings. We get high distance, those areas where the darker areas. You're with me. There are very high values, almost 0.01 meter. It's not a joke per year. So we have to carve maybe one pocket area wise, not have a problem now, but in long run, if you're not careful about the open space for recharging this one is very important. We want to take out the flood area, the wetlands. We want to build houses. If you don't have the wetlands, no recharge also reduces. Ultimately, your building will be threatened in the future, high risk. That is important. Okay, why we are important? Because in settlements calculation, we need these values. Now, I want to get you some information. So, what's going on in observing water quality in Bangladesh? There are 3 stations within Dhaka, and this is some of the results. If you looked at it, this is the standards versus actual observations. If you looked at it, all cases, we are crossing the standards. None of it within the limits. This is the situation. If you cumulative effects index all 5 parameters of the water quality, air quality, then you find only we have 2 months, little bit comfortable, low, medium, but all are red zones. We don't find color more than red. We have put purple and other colors. You see a bad condition now because most of the air pollutions is mainly due to the constructions work not properly handled. So what we are during this time, what we're talking about, this is very important. What Dhaka city environment states in terms of water quality, this will be handed over to you, but don't worry, there are standards and all of it, we are below the standards. And then also there are the sound and other pollutions, talking about there are standards, even that is also our below standards. And now I want to summarize with you for part 1 what we have talked, what you can do. Here we want to highlight the importance of environment, why it is important for the engineers. What are the standards are we going to explain later? What are the directions we found from BNBC and other codes? Okay, that where it mentions. If you don't consider now what are the consequences in future, this is very important. So what we're talking about, and a building code and environment policies we actually work through. The importance of environment protections we actually talk. Also, we talk about climate change and its implications on our resource and temperature, air, and others. And also, we talking about cause of environment degradation, why it is happening. We also mentioned why it is happening now. Then also put it our city is not functioning well in terms of standards of environment. What is happening now? Engineers has no choice but to safeguard environment. They have to understand and move forward. You are the builders. You are the dreamers for the city. So you have to protect not only the user of environment, but also the custodian of the environment. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop here. And please write your questions in your check. What do you call it? Q box. I have no idea what is it, but you type it, out of which you have a 3 to 4 minutes to type. I will back to you in 3 to 4 minutes. Try to answer some of it of your questions. Thank you.
First question is that we know that in Dhaka, alarmingly, as groundwater level falls, also we know that liquefaction potential is increases if the ground level is high. In the northern part of Dhaka is developed by filling North landfill. So can we decide that it's a blessing for us that
Okay. I understand your points. Yeah, liquefactions, if you ground no water, how can it be liquefied? so you can reduce, but which is coming with the earthquake, right? So, but here we are talking about subsidence. I show you, even 1 year, 0.02 meter. It's not a joke. Subsidence happening right now in the Gulshan Motijail area. This is a provable evidence we have. So we have to careful. 300 years, 300 years or 400 years is the frequency of the 7.5 Richter scale levels of earthquake. So yes, you are right. Obviously, very nice questions, and we have to also look at it subsidence um, uh, because of groundwater fluctuations, and also furthermore, you need water, right? You have to drink water. Now, what is happening? We are putting millions, almost 600 millions of dollars. We are spending money to bring the water from Padma, 40 kilometers away, 60 kilometers away, expensive water, and we have to trade, and then we use for drinking purposes. Second one is
We are going to answer one more question in this session, and the next question is: we know that in Dhaka. Sorry, this is the first question. I'm going to the second one. Second one is, sir, how can a structural engineer emphasize on environment and sustainability during structural design phase of a project? What are the key points that must be kept in mind during a structural design for sustainable development? Can you explain?
I think that is exactly the plan. You have rightly raised the question. That is the plan. In part two, we're going to explain about that. We're going to highlight. If I miss your some of the points, you may raise again after completion of part two lectures.
Okay, now we're going back to the lecture. I'm going to share the screen.
You can hear me. Go to the next screen. I will do that. This is part two. The key environment considerations for building, design, and construction. That is the two parts. We're going to look at the first part, design and construction. What are the considerations? How we can consider during design phase as well as construction phase. That we like to highlight here. So I will talk about this. That that what are the things we need to understand at the time of the design. What are the engineers need to look at it? So first in setting building levels. So what you have to do first one is setting the building levels. For example, and design levels you have to put it. This is the plinth level. This is the formation levels like that. How it can be done? We have to understand the flooding and design level of your road top elevations. This is you need to know. Then also the material selections. You have to be careful about material selections so that it is it does not. When you're talking about the material selections, the partition wall, side wall, is because of heat island effects, the warm and windy and the dust and pollutions. You have to be very selective the materials and especially the sound barrier, some the hollow bricks and other things, so that the outside sound is less. This is also important. Subsidence consideration is one of the most important thing. This is site. Uh, we are talking about site locations, but we have to look at its surroundings. That is very important because you do not have a particular soil on that particular area is good, but what happened to the surrounding? You have to look at that to understand clearly. And all these things you have to consider in your settlements, the calculations of your building in design process, the subsidence. Then also weather protections. Okay, weather protections, what we're talking about, exposure elements, what's exposed to the air, water, that sort of thing. The wiki, the clear cover, we have different exposures, right? The lights coming, we have different window we are used to avoid ultraviolet ray and other things. Beside the soil, we use different materials or soil in a way so that when the design comes, we have to give a space for recharge. So impermeability, infiltration can be happen with the natural rainfall. Suspended particles, one of the key things we have to understand when we understand the direction of the flow and intensity of the air directions and the air suspended particles, then you can better design when you're talking about tunnel effects and the direction of the wind. Other things is very important when you design a building. What facing, which side, what are the wind facing, and what are the surrounding tall buildings are. That you have to look at it at the time of the design. Then here is some of the standards, what we talk in building levels, formations, in the plinth level, how you going to put it, the setting, the formation levels. According to the BNBC 2020, Article 1.5.3.2, not be less than the adjacent road. So your formation level should not be the below adjacent road. This is one point. They said beside also mention uh, area not flood vulnerable or drainage problem areas, vulnerable areas. If not, that area also mention not more than 450. Don't put so high your plinth level, more than 450 millimeters from the road level. That's also the mention. Formation levels, road level, also the plinth level from the formation may be 450. There are some confusions here, but according to the article, this is where you not have the flooding problem. But you have to understand where you are, where the floods are. This information is important to fix which category you are in, which one you have to follow. Then the plinth levels, there are two notations. One is surrounding the formation level, then the plinth level. You know my point? Surrounding level, there are areas by plinth, and that sort of level, 45 centimeter, you have to raise from the formations. This is minimum, they said. So these are the things you have to look. But one most important article, so that is important, what you have to include the flood frequency study to where the flood and drainage problems are there. According to the BNBC 2020 articles 2.6.3.1, and which they mention 50-year return period. And 50 years return period, with the climate change, it might come 30 years. So if you have to look at it, that perspective, you have to understand which return period, how long the building lifetime is, and within the lifetime, what are the return period you are looking at it with the external changes or consequences in the system. Here is the one example. If you looked at the hydrographs, zigzag curves look like a cockroach is walking and draw the curves. And here you can see that the red lines, they are extreme events. And recently, there are more peaks than the past. So more frequently, there is evidence of the climate change. More frequent, the water exceed is extreme events. More frequently. If you look at the right side curve, where we equally show in, if you look at it, the return periods, 1 in 50 year, 1 in 10-year return period, the water level we found in one area, which is 20.5. But what happens with the climate change? In recent 20, 30 years, 20 centimeter more flooding is coming. Already evidence. So these are the things you need to do the analysis, flood analysis time. You have to know the surrounding environments, dependency, and external drivers, and as the climate change and other factors. We actually look at it subsidence considerations. When you're um, talking about settlements, and the BNBC says that in article which is 4.3.1 part 3, 50% is opening is mandatory. So why? There will be more recharge, more flow groundwater, no depletions, ultimately less settlements, less subsidence. That's we are talking about overall principles. Yes, and then also there are code mentioned in 2020 article 4.3.2 mention about when the area developed area is more than 1340 square kilometers, you have to look at it drainage patterns, drainage system of that particular site. Very important. And there are concept of zero discharge contents. You cannot you what you produce extra amount of water you cannot put to the neighbor, so you have to and a mechanism so that there is a zero discharge from your plots, which also implies that you are not using more than available, and over extractions you are not doing. That is important. If you not follow this 50% law, this 50% opening space, it is not only the groundwater depletions will be, which is ultimately go to the subsidence, but also it actually increase overland flow. That means more flooding too. That means more paved area, less penetrations of rainfall. That means overland flow will be increased, flooding will increase. So open space, keeping the open space a minimum 50%. If I'm president, I can do say that 70%. Okay, but we are crisis of the land and we have a patient from population. This is the best that has been decided by our policymakers that we should do. And here is some examples that I think would you kindly start now.
Yeah, thank you. So as you can see that this is some maps from the same projects of RAJUK-5. Uh, so geology for subsidence settlement. So normally we consider settlement for clay soil and sandy soils. So we do
Hello,
not
Dr.
account
Hassan.
for the.
Atik's volume is very low. Could you
Okay,
push the
okay.
microphone towards him a little bit?
Okay, can you hear us now? Is it okay?
Yes. Thank
Yeah, okay. So the thing is that we do not consider the settlement issue for the subsidence that is happening due to the groundwater depletion. Uh, so to account for that settlement, we need to have a pretty good idea about the soil profile at different depths, because we are going to put the footing of a building on different depths depending on the load demand. So knowledge of surrounding geology is important to account for settlement in design. So what can you do about it? Must keep mandatory open spaces, as BNBC mentioned. Ensure artificial recharging. There are a lot of things. Rainwater harvesting, and consider the settlement due to the subsidence in foundation design. So why we consider settlement? Because the three measures mentioned in this slide, mandatory open space, artificial recharging, and rainwater, will cover up for future. But what about now? So now we need to consider the settlement, because we cannot gain what you have lost instantly. Material selection to reduce the heat island. Choice of material, use of concrete masonry unit for partitions. BNBC Article 2020, BNBC 2020 Article 2.2.4b. You will find the necessary standards for that material. And why? We have a good insulation, less artificial cooling, hence we can do something about the heat island effects. Additionally, we can have a lightweight structure which will reduce the foundation cost, and it will perform good under earthquakes and reduce the dependencies on clay brick. As you know, the government is promoting this sort of concrete masonry units, and they are planning to go all against the clay brick by the year 2025. Next is the temperature change. More concern. Here we are not talking about any measures, but we are talking about some concerns like temperature and shrinkage reinforcement. It was introduced back in 1928, and now we are using 0.0018. Is it enough for today's climate? As Dr. Hassan explained to you earlier, the temperature rise is going too fast, and it will be rising in the future. And also SCI 2024 reported that it may be needs to exceed 0.006, which is 3 times high, approximately 3 times higher than we are doing now. And about joint practices like expansion joint, construction joints, these things are also important for this temperature change, and we need to think about the delta T about temperature change. Okay, now protection from weathering effects, clear covers. So BNBC in their article of 6.8.3 in part 6 of chapter 6 discusses about providing the clear cover from the weathering actions. So they have described five different exposure conditions about which needs to be considered during the decision-making process of selecting the clear cover for a structure, like mild, protected against aggressive weather, moderate, away from severe rain, continuously underwater, in contact with non-aggressive soil, subject to condensation, severe, exposed to severe rain, alternate wetting and drying, severe condensation, very severe, exposed seawater, corrosive fumes, extreme, exposed to abrasive actions, for example, seawater carrying solids or pH less than 4.5, and machinery or vehicles. So you will find a table where the BNBC talks about these 5 different exposure conditions, and that table is also a function of concrete strength. So you will find those information in the table. So there is another issue. We normally design the building for wind, right? So we design it for strength, but the wind has other environmental consequences to the surrounding communities, like why we need to study the wind before apart from designing it for strength. The direction of the wind and orientation and shape of the structure, climate change may increase the intensity. So why the direction of the wind and orientation and shape of the structure is important to reducing the suspended particles. Like, as you can see a picture, when a wind hits a building on its full wall face, it will deflect it. The roads around the building doesn't change. It has a fixed width. So that wind gets deflected and flow in that road. Since the road's cross-section area is fixed and the wind is coming from a higher area, and it will get deflected and enters the lower cross-sectional area, the velocity of the wind increases. Hence, the dust on the roads will come to wind and up, and the environment will become dusty. So that's the thing we're talking about. If you can place a building and select an orientation such that the wind hits the building from an angle, these effects go down and the air becomes more cleaner.
So you see, in the design considerations, you have to consider the orientations, the planning, and the space, of a building, considerations of choosing the materials, the brick and clay. Clay already bans in now in Bangladesh. Topsoil. This is huge degradation of the topsoil. Agriculture production reduces substantially. Let me come to the my second part of it, which is mainly the environmental consideration for the constructions. Major thing what we do, we have three things, one is the material, labor, and engineering, I mean the equipments and other things. So material, labors, and equipments are three things we mainly use for the construction. Of course, engineer design, without that, it's not going to happen. So construction drawings is there. So materials, so what we're talking about, the material, this is the general pictures. What you try to say, use some use of a material which contribute in the impacts on the environment. Some of the things you transport, some of the materials, it produce sound and air pollutions in the system. Even not used, they are breaking of the something, also contaminate the air, water, and also the soil and the surrounding. Also, it effects. Also, we are also use different equipments that also cause different equipments. If the old one more creates sound, then the new ones better performed ones is create less sound. Finally, overall things for the constructions is a site management is an issue for environmental safeguard during the constructions. So one of the things we have to understand, what are the impacts on the air, sound, water, and earth. That is the major elements on which the environment impacted. Then what we need and the mitigation measures to reduce it, to make it within the limits, the requirements. Each unit has the limits. Below that, we have to bring back to the normal, bring back what are the requirements of the environment. I will back to you on the requirements later. What are the standards and guidelines for that? So here is some example of the material use we are talking about during the constructions. Is the plastic. We are talking about plastic, polythene type of thing. Ultimately, two things is impact. Mainly, it will create additional layer between the surface and the soil. The infiltration is reduces. That means less recharge, less flow to the inside. That means overflow to the outside. Beside these polythenes, these bags also dump without proper management to the drains, and which actually block the drainage system. If you look at the Buriganga River, there is more than 20 feet of polythene. Imagine, you cannot dredge it because all are polythene. We order it different dredgers from Netherlands, which is like a robot, go there, collect it, and that sort of thing. So that is the situation if you use the polythene. But what we are talking about reduction, so in terms of we have to careful in using wastage is very important. So use reductions is very important. Proper management, how to use it, what to keep it, how to dump it. Recycling is one of the thing we have to do that. There should be a recycling plan. There should be some procedure and being and other management so that we can manage these harmful materials, which is maybe essential for the constructions, but create degradation to the environment. We have to avoid it. Next one, so what we're talking about, bamboo and wheat. Oh, Ahsan, we are using the natural system. Why you're talking about this will create an impact? So impact, here we are talking about the degradations of natural resources, because I told you earlier the sustainability, one of the things is must look at it regeneration capacity. The extractions cannot be the more than the regenerations. So how much production is coming from the bamboo or wood from the trees, regeneration should be enough or production should be enough so that supply or use or abstraction is not more. If it is more, then it will deplete. Like in Dhaka city, we have 25% green space to now only 5%. Sundarban and other forest area, only we have a name, but no trees, old trees, more than 100, more than 50 years and so. Because of we don't have the old trees because of regenerations. It is not happening. uh, Too much extractions. This is important. So how we can reduce it? Control overuse, fundamental. We should not. We need 10 bamboos, cut 20. Maybe we need it. Don't do that. So this is important. Ensure regenerations. So where you have to not only look at it, how much you are buying from a market, but from the source what it regenerates. You have to look for it, how where it is, from where it is bring. Like you heard about um, uh, 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 the dolphins and others. So they are very careful whether you use the oil from what what type of fish, so they don't buy it, if you don't treat it well. So certification from the source is very important. So reusable, it should be reused properly. But for bamboo and wood, we also be very careful about is we use it for fire purposes, cooking purposes. That need to be avoided. Not only the risk from the fire, but also it contribute in air pollutions, as well as it emit carbon dioxide. And in order to understand that the source and as well as its use, that you have to do proper environmental studies like EIA, ACMP. And here is another example of the steel. Hassan, we are still using. What are you talking about? No air pollution, nothing. What are you talking about? They're a toxic material use. So you have to careful at the industry level, production level. What are the measures you have to take to contaminate the environment, and proper certification system? We don't ask. We asked from BUET, give me the certificates of a rebar, whether 60 grade or this much of strength is there or not. But we never asked whether they have considered properly when they're producing the steel, they consider the environment not. This is the certifications we must ask from the manufacturer. Similar, and something we are talking about clay bricks at the time of productions and breaking use. Each area, when you're breaking, a lot of dust and sound actually creates, and you have to use water. You have to use a different type of machines or areas specified for to reduce the sound. Okay, that you have to look at it. Same for the stones, similar for the stones. It also create pollutions, sound, and also the suspended particles also increases. You have to watering that because of dust flowing away from the air, and that's the windy times. We have to very careful. The dry period is very good for the constructions, but also good for the pollutions. That is the time when the moisture is very low. That we have to look at it. Recycle is very importantly mentioned everywhere, and sound reductions barrier. You have to the special arrangements while you are doing the braking and other things. It should not create additional noise to the areas. Very risky. Too much sound actually create when you cut and tiles. That is, and you have to use proper technology, proper less less sound, create equipments and use better use you use an area or room where you do this all this kind of thing, soundproof area, different rooms where your labor also put he or she has to protect his ear too. So both protections you have to look at. Without human there is no environment, without environment there is no human. So that you have to look at it both. And then we need an sand. This is when you're carrying, if you're not covered well, it also pollute, dust particles on the system. If you saw that is very high level in fine particles in the Dhaka city, both in 10 as well as 2.5 grades. So in order to do that, you have to cover as well as use water at the time of use. This is very important. This is the thing what we like to use, and these are the equipment list. I think would you kindly.
Thank you, sir. So environmental considerations during using the construction equipments. So number one is excavator. Noise level. Noise level is 80 to 60, 86 decibel. Hand compactor 80 decibel. Generator 75 to 85 decibel. Mixer machine 85 decibel, vibrator machine 74 to 80 decibel, rod cutter 104 decibel, welding machine 85 to 102 decibels, grinding machines 85 decibels, drill machines 104 decibels. So what we do, the mitigation for these equipments when they're being used in the construction sites. So first of all, uh, we're going to talk about EIA and ESMP later in our presentation, but let's just mention those names to you. Uh, conduct EIA or ESMP, and mitigation measures from ESMP must be maintained or followed at this job site. So, and then choosing a machine that does not produce sound more than tolerable limits as per national and international standards. You will find lots of new machines coming into the market, and they promises that they produce less sound than those than the standard levels for human comfort. So, and there is one more way that is, I think, can you hear me? I think
Yes.
someone asked a question about having hearing problem. Is it okay now?
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay. So another way we can do that, shifting the working hours, like when people go to work, they do not at home. We can shift the work on that time, and reduce the working when they come back to home. So that's one way to do it, and there is a more efficient way to do this, using sound barrier or enclosing the working areas of those machines. That is the very good way to do it, to reduce the sound or the noise level while working. And the, most of the time, we do not need to use the faulty or old machines. We need to change or update those machines that we use in our construction sites. Next one is environmental considerations at the site level, site management level. So the possible impacts are unhygienic conditions due to a lot of things like toilet for the workers and other things, dumping the construction waste that creates unhygienic condition at the job site, waste dumping, and other related pollution. So how to reduce the impacts? How to reduce the impacts, hygiene in the practice. So hygiene in practice, actually relates to so many things like training the workers before the construction site about the hygiene and a lot of things like that. And disposal in a fixed location, that is a very, very crucial point. We are talking about disposal of the construction waste, of the excreta of human, the workers, they are working there, like disposal in a fixed location, and those dumps needs to be removed timely. Otherwise, they're no good. They're no good. And monitoring and control of the environmental quality standards at the construction site continuously to ensure that the construction site is performing well in terms of environment. And now we are going to start part 2B, environmental tools and standards. So environmental acts. So in this part, we're going to talk about three things. What does the Environmental Act 1995 says, and the punishment, and what type of things that this thing is under the purview of this act. So the conservation of environment, improve of environmental standards, and control and mitigation of environmental pollution to lessen harm to the air, water, noise, soil, livestock, wild elements, bird, fish, etc. And any violation of the standard of the Environmental Act under Section 15 would be an offense. So that offense has to be punished. The punishment for that offense is imprisonment not exceeding 10 years or fine not exceeding 10 lakh or both. So now I'm going to tell you a very, very important thing. That is the Rule 7 of Environmental Protection Rules 1997, Schedule 1 tells us that no industrial organization or project will be allowed to take in any area without environmental clearance certificate. That is, it is not just the industrial organization, but also the other projects, even a simple two-storied residential building. Now, the features and applicability of that rule is that Environmental uh, Act, law, ordinance, key features, applicability, Environmental Conservation Rules 1997, subsequent amendments in 2002, 2003, and 2010, Declaration of Ecologically Critical Areas, requirements of environmental clearance, certificate for various categories of projects, requirements of IEE and EIA as per category, projects falls into green category, orange O category, orange OA, orange OB category, and red category. The Environmental Conservation Act 1995 and subsequent amendments define applicability of environmental clearance, regulation of development activities from environmental perspective, framing of standards for air, water, and noise quality applicable if the projects and activities associated with environmental issues. Environmental standards, green category, orange A category, orange B category, and red category. Manufacturing of TV, etc., assembling of telephones, medical and surgical instruments, a lot of things. Validity of under this category, you will need a you will have a validity of environmental clearance certificate for 2 years, and you will only need an environmental clearance certificate for this category of structures. Or is a category of structure, you will have a validity of environmental clearance certificate for 1 year, and you will need site clearance certificate as well as issuing of environmental clearance certificate. And orange B category will also have a environmental clearance certificate for 1 year, and it will also require site clearance and environment. The only difference being which category harms the environment more or less. That's the only difference between these two categories. And the red category will also have an environmental clearance certificate for 1 year, but it will require one more environmental study like site clearance and environmental clearance. Along with that, you will have to conduct a environmental impact assessment, which you know as EIA.
Now you already heard from the Atik that what are the laws, what we should do, what we should not do. And here I'm going to talk about what are the tools available for us to understand, to analyze the environment situations. There are 5 to 6 tools. These are the common tools. I just put it at some list so that you know uh, what are the tools, when you're going to, why this one, and where we can apply. These are the things. So what you're talking about is environmental profile. First one, why we need it to understand the surrounding environment. When we do the planning of a township planning, you need environment profile. So that's time you need environment profile. IEE, this is most important one. Initial environmental examinations, this is actually go for the site clearance, do the site clearance, and also write the TOR for EIA, depending on potential impacts, whether your commercial buildings or residential building produce or in an ecological sensitive area, then you need a site clearance. You see, that is another thing is EIA. When you have a red category, obviously you have no other choice but to do the EIA, environment impact assessments. Here we like to know two things. What is the current state? What are the requirements, means standards? And with the intervention, what will be the changes? So what are the changes? What are the potential impacts will be with the interventions, considering that this is the baseline conditions that we understand here. And here also understand the possible mitigation measures understand what are the impacts because of these interventions, what are the different scenarios of impacts that we like to. This is actually happens at the time of feasibility study of a project. At the time of the feasibility, you have to do not only the feasibility of economics, but also the feasibility in terms of impact of environment. Because the reduction of the environment, you need money to spend to protect that. So that's why this is important. All water sector projects are red category. All power sector projects are red categories. Or all your residential projects will be the red category, are red category if it contributes contaminations to the environment. And also in the ecological sensitive areas, then you must do the IEE that I mentioned. Beside, we have the resettlement plans, because sometimes in a new area, there are agriculture field. There are somebody using. I'm the owner, but my crop is farming by a farmers, sharecroppers. You know, but you have to come up with a plan so that when you acquire the land, we address those social issues. We have to have a full plan to resettle those, their income, their state, everything. Even you buy, you owns the land. That is the idea. Then also we looking at ACMP. This is environmental and social management plan. In addition to the EIA, we do the mitigation plan. That is the additional in mitigation plan, which includes what will be the measures to reduce the impacts and who will do that, how much cost will be. These are the things are included in the ACMP, and also a plan for monitoring, which is in the last one, impact monitoring, ESMP monitoring plan. So it is not only produce the reports, but somebody at the time of the constructions, you have to monitor whether they follow the plan which was mentioned in ACMP.
So now we are talking about some quality standards. We do not have much time, so I'm going to read out fast. Air quality standards for pollutant of CO 10 milligram per meter cube for an 8-hour duration. And SO2 is 365. which is 0.14 ppm for 24 hours. Next, for surface water, as you can see, there are a lot of things. One thing I want to mention is that the water usable for drinking purpose, if the water is supplied for drinking purpose, it has to be it has to have a pH of 6.5 and 8.5, BOD less than 6, or DO is less than 6, and total coliform number 5,000 or less. Next one is drinking water standards. COD needs to be 4 milligram per hour, milligram per liter. Dissolved oxygen needs to be 6 milligram per liter. That's it. And next, BNBC 2020 guidelines for use of water. They talk about two types of water: that the water we use and the water we use during the construction. The water we use needs to have a BOD less than 50 after flushing, to ensure that that it's clean for disposal to the sewage systems. And during construction, BNBC talks about to have a water clean and free from injurious amounts of oils, alkali salts, and other things. And the standards you have to follow is BDS ISO 124439. 2011 for mixing water for concrete. You will find that in chapter 2.3.4 part 5, chapter 2, BNBC 2020. Ambient sound level, there are two types of guideline. That one is during daytime and one is during nighttime. In residential area, you have to maintain a 55 decibels during daytime, and in night you have to maintain a 45 decibels of sound.
Thank you, Atik. Just to understand the part 2, there are 3 things we have discussed. The BNBC talking about how to build a structure with the considerations of the flood, environment, and as also the policies and standards. So we look at it, different aspects of it, standards, requirements by the government Department of Environment. They have mentioned what are the standards, how these things are polluted. We show that at the time of construction and design period, what are the things need to be looked at it at the construction time, what are the things to reduce the pollutions, what are the considerations you have to consider that. And then we also talk about the standards, what are the needs. So these 2 things are very important to look at it. I will go now to the 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes break. Now we have a 5 minutes, 2 minutes for your quick questions. Write your questions in the chat box. I will answer 3 minutes. I'm taking too much time. Please do that now. So you just write down, give me 2 minutes, that sort of thing. We will give you the answers at the end of our presentations, because otherwise we're not covering that. Part 3 is a very important, but you have to look at it, understanding the first part. Please go through it, write down your queries in take 2 to 3 minutes time, and we will try to answer it after completion of our lectures, part 3. Thank you. This is our part 3, last part of our lectures today. Last 2 hours you may be exhausted, so but I feel I go a little bit slow. One of the reasons is we need some clarity to understand. I bring a lot of things, but the presentation will be available to you, so you can read. There are references. From there you can find the answers. My email address and other things will be there. If you write to me, I can answer it. Let's go to our part. This is the application of the tool and standards for environment protection. There are 2 examples we want to build. Recently, we have done ESMP for learning center constructions. So we design. At the time of design, what are the considerations? At the time of the constructions, what are the I just snapshot some of it so that you can understand what was the issues, what are the impacts, what are the measures we suggest for that impacts. Final examples we want to give. If you want to do the hydrological analysis, the flood levels or plant levels, how you can do that? Some snapshots I will show to you. So first, the engineer setting, they're looking for social demands, and also have guidelines by the DOE, the BNBC codes, and also finally they also need to protect the environment. Uh, so building and the natures. So we are construction of buildings, and we want to use natural, we want to use from the nature the water, the air, land, and but also we have the pollutions from our developments, from our infrastructure developments to the nature. So these two need to be balanced, need to be looked at in a way so that we can reduce or stop and make it within the standards. That is important. There are many steps we already said. There are, we have to do sometime environment profile, IEE, EIA, SMP, these things, which one for what type of interventions, what type of tools we have to use depending on what category or interventions. Like you said earlier, the red, orange one, orange two, and then the green ones. Okay, so even then, any site clearance, you need environmental clearance for the site clearance. So that is mandatory. After that, you have, if you produce the contaminations I mentioned, then you have to do the EIA and ASMP. I will give an example what we have done. This is the two-storied buildings, temporary, semi-permanent two-storied building we suggest in the Rohingya camp, and not in Dhaka, just to understand what is happening. There are camps, there are the buildings we suggest, and a semi-permanent structures to accommodate Rohingya children for continue their educations, to mainstream their Myanmar's learning schooling system so that they don't miss the school. That is the whole idea. So make mainstreaming the children's in the education programs. And in order to two-storied buildings, do two-storied semi-permanent buildings, we suggest. And in order to do that, these are the things we look at it. First, we look at it context, why it is, where the locations, the hydrology, the environment, and the service that it's supposed to provide to the society. Education support. So it's going to use a toilet. How much water they need? How much water will come from the rain? How much it will drain? The context, the whole area of use respects, demand respects. That we understand. Context means demand and has to be, and supply has to be understood properly. Then what are the issues? What can be happen wrong? What can be the implications on that sort of during the constructions of two-storied semi-permanent building? What are the pollution can be? What going to happen to the drainage system? What going to happen because of traffic volumes, because we have to transport the goods, right? And that additional transport because of that particular constructions. There are 56 numbers, so not small numbers. The road has a capacity. So everything you have to look at it. What are the issues? Then if it is issues indirectly, what are the impacts on environment, sound, and others, water? Once we understand that, what are the measures feasible for that situation, for that area to address, reduce its within the limits, within the standards, so that it is not detrimental or impacts on the environment. End of the day, what we're looking at is stakeholder consultation continuously to understand the whole philosophy. It's people is within the environment, so you have to work for end of the day the children's who are going to use it for future generations for better healthy environment situation that we plan, that we submit, and that is now implementing in that area. So these are the things. So what we look at it, there are areas. So each area is different. So for we first of all we actually make it groups. Some of the environment, hydrological and social groups culture profile is different than the others. So what we're talking about here in a construction safety first, what we're looking at when you build construction safety, we have to look at it. The hydrology and climate, we have to look at it. What can be wrong? What are the hydrology? What are the water? How much water is needed? That sort of thing, we have to know that. Then environmental and ecology, whether there is nearby big trees are there where the bird actually sit there, their nest grounds are there, their animals are walking place or not. These are the things we have to look at it. Beside the socio-economic condition, the disparity during the wage between local versus the migrated peoples, there are problems, and the grievance mechanism we have to also look at it. Beside pre-construction conditions is important, before there are storage, there are people, you have to store your materials, you have to organize the site selection areas, everything. You have to cover the structure. Then construction phase. At the time, first pre-construction, not construction, you cover the area, you have to protect, you have to clean the area, you have to clean the drainage, you're putting all the service areas, storage areas, protection areas, that you have to do. At the time of the constructions, during the construction, what are the activities will be happen, and what is the mode of construction they're going to use, the contractors, and what are the methods they're going to use, how much time they will need, how many levers they will use, what are the materials they have you going to use. Those information we collect from the contractors. Okay, so based on that, we actually look at implications. Then decide after the construction, at the time of use, what may be the considerations we need to do. Construction is done, we need a tree coverage, we need and a proper hygiene facilities, safety of the children during road cross and other things, that we need to look at it in that perspective. So that is the whole philosophy behind it. So I will give you some example. Here is the air pollution impacts and mitigation. How air pollution is coming from poor site management. If you don't do the proper site management, keeping your sand covered, keeping the watering and that sort of thing, then there will be the air pollution. If there is a air pollution, the impact, dust, will be there, and then the breathing problems to the nearby community. They are very closely packed houses. The breathing problem. Their children's surrounding people. The suspended particles will be inhale them, and finally respiration problem will come. The impacts. The one of the things, the mitigation we're talking about, losing materials must be stored in a safe place. And so loose material should be avoided, and watering is an important area. It should be covered, the which can be sourced for suspended particles. These are the things you need to look at it. Here is an example of the air pollutions. Suspended particles. What you're talking about, suspended particles, the range. This is we are. Pollution. So we are talking about suspended particles, total suspended solids. The blue are the existing situations, the blue bars, and the red line is the standards. You already see some of them already cross the standards, but with the interventions, because the truck will come, the open air, if they don't follow the open, sand trucks will come, and that will add more pollution. So dotted lines will be the future conditions of suspended particles. This is dotted lines. And if we do the mitigation, which we said, covered ban, and also the watering and keeping different players damming, then we are able to reduce from the dotted red lines to the green lines possible. So that is our target. It may increase. So the baseline is blue. From the baseline, standard lines is red, and then with the interventions of construction, at the time of the construction, pollution added particles will raise up to the dotted red lines. With the mitigation plans, we are able to lower down. This is clear understanding how we can reduce it, and that is important for our building. Similarly, we give another example, our impacts and mitigations for noise. For example, noise pollutions due to the at the time of the constructions, they are the breaking of the bricks and construction piers using different equipments that Atik mentioned about different sound it creates. If you don't, that sound actually disturb the habitats in that area. The birds won't fly. The surrounding people cannot sleep. So you have to careful about this sound. An additional sound, it also hazardous for the health. Your ear will be damaged. Hearing power will be damaged. So mitigations. So what we're talking about, workers produce noises should be should not be with in the warehouse. So in the warehouse, it should be protected area where you can cut your pieces and say in a sound closed sound areas and no sound areas. That is very important. And the timing, another thing we have to look at it. We use the vehicles in the roads, and that roads as a peak time, you have to avoid the peak time so that you don't add to the noise of the trucks and the sound in addition to the existing one. Here is an example of a braking sound, and then you covered with the sound barrier. As an example, you can see on the right side pictures. Blue ones is the existing sound levels, and red one which the interventions, and the green ones with the sound barrier, you can reduce the sound level like this. Similarly, we can do the same way with the water pollution. I will go a little bit faster. Water pollution is from drinking water, contaminations in sanitary use, purpose that you could the human excreta. If you don't use properly, then directly drain to the drains and finally exposed to the community and environments. That actually huge implication on the health issues. And one of the things that unhygienic conditions make people sick. Your labor force is efficiency will reduce, and that sort of thing. So you have to consider the hygiene, properly hygiene, latrine, and other things, so that it does not contaminate. Finally, the waste what you produce from the constructions, that waste you have to manage properly, treat properly before you dump to the drain system. Finally, that drain contaminated in the wetlands. So you have to careful about whole system. In a way, what you're talking about, use the latrines, latrines instead of pit latrines. So we normally use in that, so that contaminations will be less. It will be better that it will be better to use that latrines. So what you're talking about is the different parts of the route. You have you can have different source of pollutions, latrines. Here is the same graph. Existing ammonia levels, and because of leakage of toilets That is the reason we get the ammonia in the drinking water in that nearby tables, which is, you see, the standards is the red line. We got blue, much more higher. That will be higher because additional table will be installed for the purpose for the construction purpose, and also the pit latrines will be there for the lever. So we mitigate. We want to say that no more like that. You have to use uh, okay, latrines, so that no more like a portable latrines type of thing. So it does not contaminate, go to the soil, to the groundwater, or to the drinking purpose. That is important. End of the day, what we're talking about, it is not only what you're talking about impacts, but also the plan for mitigation. Then we have to clearly specify who's going to do what and when. That you have to specify in a matrix. I don't go for further, but you have to detail out. If you need, I can give you the whole report, which is about 300 400 pages, but that will be useful if you really wanted some of the ESMP reports from us. So now the second examples, what we are talking about, the flood frequency analysis. In the flood frequency analysis, you have to understand two things. One, which data I'm going to use, which is my controlling stations for my site. That is very important. And the second one, a method to analyze those data. So which data is important for me, and then which method I can apply to get my flood frequency analysis. So these are the two things. Then I tell you about what you're talking about. Flood frequency is important to, we already talked about it, the level, what we want to fix, the plinth level, formation level, that we have to fix based on the code suggested in BNBC. One of the things where you have a problem of the flood areas, drainage location problem, you have to do the flood analysis. How you can do that? That we are going to show you. Here is a hydrograph. This is one location in Dhaka city on a Buriganga. From there, we extract the time series data, extract daily data from daily yearly maximum data. Every year, one data. So one data, we plot this line. So maximum water level data in a year for Dhaka. That we know from the graph in 1988, it was very close to the 8 meters. And 1998, it was also less than 88, but close to 8. Another one is 2004. These 3 years are very high floods levels in terms of flooding. If you do the frequency analysis based on the peaks, this maximum, then you're going to get curve like this on the right side. What it show that using the Gumbel distribution, there is a popular distribution method, the Gumbel. Very simple. Here is the equation. You have it. If you want, I can send you the Excel file and you can practice that. That is not a problem. So there are different parameters. I show for this extension, so what are the parameters here. So there are 4, but I don't want to go in details. But one thing you want to see, the return period, 1 in 10 year, 1 in 100 year. In 100 year, approximately 8 meter is the maximum, is the water level data. So if you fixed your 100 year return period for Dhaka city, the portion in the southern portion, you have to go for 8 meters. But it varies, right? Your area, land area, you have to do the leveling between the gauge stations, zero values, with your land area where you built your area. Then you put in a pillar with the top level mention about your benchmark. So benchmark, then if it is 1 in 100 year, that is the level. This level will change. with the climate change. You have to be careful about it. Which time series, how long the time series you like to use it. This is important, not only that, the demands by the users. Oh, no, 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 I want not 100 years, I in 1000 years. So you have to careful about 100 years plus frequency. Normal principle, if you do minimum, you need 30 years data to come up with a good shape. That is more data, more reliable of your frequency analysis. That we like to talk. The learning, what we said today is what is environment, why it is important for the engineers, how to protect environment, what are the standards and tools needed to be used, what are the standards and protocols we need to use to protect the environment, how, why it is important, we like to know when you talking about impacts, and finally to understand it, then we can use it. So enforcement of the buildings code, one of the thing for environment perspective, for sustainable development, we have no other choice but to follow the protect the environment. The engineers must follow. Without, we have no other choice for sustainable development of we are our hands, our designer, our built the cities, the infrastructures. So if it is not sustainable, our children will cry in future. So look at it for future. Look at it what can be, what we need to do for our future generations, for sustainable infrastructure. Understand the environment, protect the environment, and apply standards and protocols, and use appropriate tool to save Dhaka city for our future generation. Thank you very much. Hello. Now you can ask some questions. You can write down some questions. I can answer from the second one that we can do. I already take too much of your time. Maybe I will take another 10 minutes.
So we have 15 questions. We already answered some of those. So I'm going to read out the questions to Dr. Ahsan, and he is going to answer the questions right after that. So, okay. So the question about, according to BNBC 2020, is there any guideline about level difference of finished floor, finished ground level to avoid flood? Finished ground level.
Let me answer that. We have two choices. One, I don't have data. So what I have to do, I know the road. Normally in front of my road is either one in 30 years or 50 years. But I need 50 years, not 50 years, I need 100 years. My life of a structure is 100 years that you want to design. Minimum 50 years return period, we have to use it. Okay, so in other 50 years, the major roads are normally in the 50 years, the big roads, and the inside roads are 30 years in general. But if you have, which I showed to you earlier, if you have nearby water level stations, and you can do the frequencies. But nowadays, not only the river flow, river water level control the frequency, but also the rainfall, which cause the flooding, which I show in my first part of my presentations. So you have to look at both to analyze. Yes, you can use the 1 in 100 year return period for your plant. That is best choice for us. Thank you.
The next question we have is, what are the factors to be considered for sustainable water resource project in Bangladesh?
In water resource projects, we normally mitigate the hazards from one location to another. We put in a dike, embankments, we protect that particular area, but in the downstream, it start flooding. So we have to look at it. For sustainable ones, we have to have integrated water management plans. Integrate both looking at holistically, not in the portion of it. Like I mentioned to you, not look at your house plots where you are designing. Look at its surroundings. Like same for water sector projects, not only look at it, the protections or infrastructure development only for that area, but look at the surroundings. That is important. And also look at the dynamics of the demography as well as uncertainty from the climate change. Thank you.
In spite of flooding, rain falling, precipitating, etc., what is the reason of decreasing groundwater table every year about 1 meter in Dhaka city?
Two main reasons. One is too many pumps, the water is pumping from the groundwater. We are too many users, we are demand, I need water, everybody needs water. And 150 liters per capita is needed, Even some of the areas, 30 to 40 liters per day is a normal consumption. Huge. I can give you the pictures, but over extractions I show you 2.1 millions of people in 10 years back. Now 21 million of people, and in 35 million will be coming soon. It will be huge population, and every people drink water. Not only that, so that is important. That we are extracting more water. Second one, we are paving the water. A lot of wetlands. I show you the blue areas. 38%. The yellow area was the wetland, and now we filled it up land. We actually building the house. Thank you very much, Bashundara and other areas, and actually reduce the wetlands. Means retention ponds are reduced. That means the drainage capacity we reduce. Not only the we blocking the drain, but also the retention pond is no more there. 38% of the wetlands reduced. So that is the two reasons it's going down. We don't have open space enough, build up area all paved. I don't want to see the mud. Okay, good. But I finally had a lot of waters, muddy waters on the top of it. So that is the reason. Thank you very much.
We have two more questions. One is that if the water table gets down, we will not get benefit for shallow foundation design.
You know better than me, but what we're talking about, subsidence, settlements. The subsidence we are talking about in Dhaka city, I demonstrate Matijil and some two spots. There may be many areas. The soil is filled up by air or water. If water is no longer there, only adjacent within the field capacity that water is there, though it will reduce to the wilting points. So that much of water is there. Rest is void, so it will settle. When it settles, that means you have differential settlements more if it is not equally settled. And now you will get benefit because when you use your all pile design or foundation design, if it is water reach to your ground levels up to the formation level, then you have to capacity reduced for individual footing. But imagine you reduce the capacity because you gain capacity because the water table is very low, it not to come, but flood may be coming, then it will reach to that level. Then what happened? You have no other choice. You don't subsidence as well as flooding. Both you have problem. You are with me. Thank you.
So the last question is that, dear sir, what type of structures are to be built in Bangladesh now, such drastic situation of environment?
We are talking about green buildings, energy efficiency, water efficiency are the key factors. But we have to look at beyond the air pollutions, which is in construction's time, we don't look at it. Green building certifications, when the industry pollutes, and that one, we don't look at it, the water pollutions, contaminations indirectly. So green building is one of the choice, which is costly, But if you all everybody careful about at the time of the constructions, take the proper measures, proper study. It does not cost much. You have to study, and you have to monitor the conditions, and then very simply you can reduce the pollution substantially. Thank you very much.
I think there are a few more questions coming in. So let's see. Okay. Okay. What are the precautions we should know when we have to install drywall in our property line? There are no such guideline for drywall installation in BNBC 2020.
Okay. Drywall, as there is not mentioned, we are talking about our bindings is within BSPC or a DOE. So the experts will back to you if he or she has an answer for it. For me, we don't have the guidelines, as our only Bible is the BNBC. That is the Bible in front of us, and the DOE for environment purpose. Thank you.
I think the next question is for Maria. Sir, will you give us a single certificate for this webinar, which you have passed with the total CPD hours? I think this is not for us. This is for Maria.
Yes, they have to take the quiz after this webinar, and then when they pass the quiz, then they get the certificate.
Okay, so I think the question is answered.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how can we encourage about sustainable design development to landowners as they consider cost is priority?
Yeah, cost is always there, but what I showed earlier, your lifetime for your infrastructure is, let's say, 100 years. But because of you don't use the clear cover in a way so that the weather conditions, the prevailing weather conditions is not suitable for it. You don't put the the temperature enforcement, the considering the um, considering the temperature rise, heat waves, and other things, it will damage further. We look at a lot of cracks, lot of moisture is iron fine cracks. So we found because of that we don't have done properly. So ultimately, the if investments investment is not done in the beginning with the full protection for sustainable development for 100 years to come, that building will stand. We have to look at it, understand it, and then use it. To the client, we have to tell them that these are the standards. We have no other choice. Engineer has to say to the client, we have no other choice to fulfill DOE law and BMDC guidelines and codes. So within the codes, these are the things we have to follow. Mention sustainable construction practice that they say, highlights that. Positive environment impacts, which they highlights in BNBC. That means not degradations, it's improvement of the environment. That is the mention. It is not stopping degradation, but to improve environment conditions. So we have to talk with the client and show these are the preconditions. And in my analysis, I look at it. If you invest 10% in the environment to protect, you will gain 30% in return. Thank you very much.